Hello, this is the Alchemicolic, and I'm here to do another ASDMR video. Um, like I've written in the description for my channel, I am an adult on the autism spectrum, and I have sought to use these ASMR videos as a way of presenting things that are interesting to me, and maybe seek to improve inclusion and other things related to that. And maybe I feel like it's a helpful thing for me that could also be helpful for other people. Today, the topic of this video is stims and fidgets. So each of the things that I'm going to show here are things that I've sort of collected over the last few years that are pleasing in some manner or another. They sort of cover a wide variety, so I'll just discuss them as we go, and sort of show you what's appealing to me about them, and maybe some of those things would be appealing to some other folks out there. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and if you do, please feel free to like and subscribe. And if you have any feedback or ideas for other videos for this channel, please let me know in the comments. So without further ado, let's begin. So I'll start with a simple thing. This is something that I believe I got in my Christmas stocking this year. And it's a rather simple fidget. So we have this sort of screw thing, or like a little plastic bolt with a nut that has three things on it that can spin around. And in a way, it has similar to appeal to some of the things that are in my collection of metal things, which, if anyone's watched that as well, would know that I've got a number of bolts and things that are in that collection, some of which have some moving parts still. But this is still just something that came in the stocking. It does have the benefit of being plastic, which means that it does not have any sort of odor to it, which isn't always the best thing regarding the metals that I also collect. These the sort of end part of this can also come off, I believe, and if you had or I guess the part that would be on the other end, if you have different ones, you could swap the pieces around and sort of get a different arrangement if you wanted to. So there you go. That's the first thing. There are a variety of websites that sell different kinds of stim things and fidgets, and I think this probably came from just a standard site like that. So put that aside, move along. This right here is a piece of faux fur. And it's just a soft thing, and is nice to the touch. for a one of the projects that we worked on a couple years ago, we bought a bunch of like scrap fur pieces from a site that sells to I guess to furries primarily, and this is just a tiny cutting that was left over from one of the other things we made. And because that company's producing faux fur for furries, it's pretty high quality stuff and is really nice to the touch. I mean, there's plenty of faux fur that you can find that's kind of icky. At least it's icky to me. I don't know. But this stuff is really nice. I'll have to dig up what the name of that company is, but I'll maybe I'll be able to tag it in the comments or something. But definitely a good material. If I think of other places with good stims, maybe I'll put a link as well. Let's see. Okay. I also have this feather. I think I bought this just at a craft store in the bag of other feathers, but it's got a nice scratchy part at the one end, so sort of hard, and it can be nice to do something sort of like that. For me, when I do this sort of thing, I kind of imagine that I'm sowing a field and sort of create lines. And probably in the next 30 seconds or so, I'll have a bunch of red lines that'll show up on my hand, but that's just part of it, I guess. But then, aside from the sort of scratchy part, there's also the other part of the feather, and I find that to be pleasant to deal with as well. I'm going to try and show my arm, but now I look like a tiger. It's maybe a little challenging to get it to appear for the camera, but oh, maybe there. I've got just sort of streaks all across my arm now. And I don't know, maybe a little difficult to show, but then one of the nice things to me about the feather is that as I sort of brush, because it's so long, it can cover a wider area. For me personally, I find sort of touch sensations that are light, that are very localized, to be irritating and unsettling. And so when, like, I'll be fine with a light sensation if it can be over a wider area, and the feather here is good for that purpose. another thing that I like to do whenever I have feathers is that after doing something with them and sort of messing up all the little parts of it, I like to try and sort of reset them and get everything flattened together. This feather at this point is a little old though, and I think it's probably not going to get as back together as it used to. Though I certainly have more upstairs, and yeah. Anyway, so that's just a feather. I can't say that I would want to use a feather that I found somewhere necessarily, probably because of cleanliness, but so I recommend the ones that you could buy in a craft store because at least it's cleaner. Let's see. I also have a stress ball. This is actually from a local organization, which is for autism stuff. And they had included this as it's like something in a, what do they call it? When you have a conference or something and you have items like a bag of things that you give to people that show up, like favors. It's not party favors, but something like that. So it's just a stress ball. One of the things that has always been a little ironic to me about this one in particular is that one of my sensory aversions is actually the color orange, and the stress ball that this is orange. So better as a thing to use if you're going to use it, but not really so much for me to look at. I also have these. This is the stiffer one of these things here. It's going to take me a moment to remember what the name of these is. But it's they sell these, I think, on Amazon and some other places, but it's a tool that's used to help strengthen your hand. And is also a good fidget. You can sort of stretch and pull, and you can get them in sets of yellow, red, and blue, where the yellow one is the thinnest, or it's like the least tight and least tense, and the red one is the next one up, and the blue one is the stiffest one. And they're good for exercising your hands. If you're someone who has like difficulty holding pencil for a while, you can use these to sort of strengthen your grip and just sort of practice. Or in my case with dermatillomania, and I have like a tendency to do things like scratch my skin or just sort of like pick at myself, and I had found these online as a tool that I could use to help give myself something to do and not hurt myself. by scratching too much and stuff. Let's see what else I can present here. Okay. Here is a Knucklebones from the company Around Square. It's a sort of float toy for your hands. At this point, they make them in a variety of materials and styles, and I think they even have ones that are customizable. It's got a... So this one here is made of brass, and it has, you know, these two heavy sides, and it's thinner in the middle, so you can sort of roll it around your fingers. As I showed in the other video about the collection of metal things, I like metals, which is why I chose to get one that's made of brass. I really like the heft of this, and just sort of the weightedness. That's definitely appealing. I know there are people that get a lot better with using them, and I'm sure if I spent more time practicing, I would. Because it is a metal thing that is also heavy. One of the obstacles to getting a lot of practice is that it makes a lot of noise if it falls and hits the table, or falls and hits the chair or the floor or something. And that's not always a good thing for someone with sensitive hearing, or someone who's sort of not really a friend to big, sharp, loud sounds. So there is that end of it. But if you're in a place that has like maybe a carpet or something, then it can be easier if you're like out in the grass or something, but don't lose it. Anyway, that's the Knucklebones from Around Square. I also have a fidget spinner here. And I've really gotten quite a lot of use out of my fidget spinner, almost to the point where it's not really all that usable. I actually ordered this on GoPuff, but at this point, for some reason, the middle part here doesn't fit totally well inside this anymore. So it just sort of slides out. I don't really know why that happened. But it's interesting to me is that the ball bearing in the middle is a different kind of ball bearing from the other ones. This ball bearing here is the same as these, except that it's lost its sort of cover plate part of it for both sides. But the one in the middle is a much better ball bearing than the other ones, and it can spin a lot longer than the other ones can. So There, that's just a standard fidget spinner there. And then I have this thing here. I don't remember the name of this thing in particular, but it has all of these sort of segments to it, and you can sort of bend them and click them into certain positions, and it's possible to then make some shapes with them. As you go about doing this, there is a little clicking sound that it makes every time you get something into place, and I suppose that that little jolt as something falls into place is, to me, to my hands, it's somewhat similar to the sort of click that happens if you do something like pick at your skin or something, and it could be used as a deterrent or as something to sort of fill that kind of stimulation need, if that's something that you also deal with. So here I've just done some clicking around to stop to shorten that, and now I can actually click this into the other end. Let's see. And now it's almost like a bracelet or something, but if you just sort of pull it, it'll all come undone. All right, so that's that, and move on a little further. I have this thing here. This was actually the bag that something else came in. The thing that it came with is like a sort of soft thing that you would use to apply makeup, I think. But the bag here is just a piece of satin, and I definitely have an affinity for things that are sort of silky or soft. So the sort of smoothness of the satin bag is something that was really just as appealing as the object that had come inside of the bag. Funny enough. Then I have a brush here. This brush is something that they use in like barbershops and hair salons. You would use it to sort of like brush someone's neck. The salon that I had first seen one of these in was they called it a bunny brush, but it's also something that's just sort of nice to sort of to brush yourself with. Maybe brush your face or part your forehead. You can brush over your eyes because it's gentle and soft, and you could brush the back of your neck or your head, your ears, back over my eyes again. If you wanted a little more of a prickly sensation, you could dab instead of brushing, but the brushing is nice and soft and gentle. You could sort of alternate if you wanted to. And you could always choose how slow or fast you went with it. And that's the Perfection Crystal Elegance. And it's I believe it's just a neck brush. I think that's what the technical term would be if you were looking for that. I did have one with me in the previous video on the collection of metal things. Let's see what else. Here is a star. It's another just sort of stress thing. I guess I can't say that it's a stress ball since it's a stress star. This one is actually a sort of promotional item that was made for a program at my university that I helped to run for a few months. So there's that. And moving on. I've got a Tangle here. Now, my Tangle is broken at the moment. I definitely recommend to anyone who has a Tangle that they not break it. They do make Tangles that are made of plastic and rubber and other stuff. And this one here is one that was made of metal, or is made of metal. Like with other things that I have put on display here, I enjoyed that this has some heft to it. That for me, when I'm like sort of looking for something that is got some sensory feedback for it, a thing which is heavy can be appealing for me. I think part of that has to do with just general issues related to gotta think of the right word. It's like understanding where my hand is in physical space. Just sort of, body kinematics, and that if you have this heavy thing in your hand, it's gonna cause a sort of pull downward, which is gonna send signals through your nervous system and up through your spine and to your brain, and it'll help your brain understand, okay, that's where I am. And that's being able to get that kind of feedback is useful for me. And I think in general that's part of the appeal of having heavier things. This particular Tangle, one of the other thing here that's nice about it is that because it's metal, it's a little more discreet. Not all fidgets and stims are going to necessarily look like something that an adult should be carrying, and it can be less awkward to have something like this, which is all metal versus something that is rubbery and has bumps on it, and generally looks like something that a child would carry. If I get to that in my box here, I'll certainly bring it out. Yeah, so let's see what else I've got here. I also have a bubonic plague stress ball. So these particular stress balls have like a net on the outside of them, so that when they are squeezed, the inside has to go through this net and it creates little bubbles. And on the inside is a green liquid. Blah, boo. I very much like the color blue. It's definitely one of my favorite colors. And so while they make a bunch of different varieties of these, different color combinations where it goes like red to green or green to red, or other things, this one in particular is one that was the most appealing to me because I like blue and green, and yeah, it's definitely a good one. I do like this kind of stress ball more than this one, and not just because this one is orange. But one thing that you have to be careful about with these is that if you use them too much, if you hold it too long, eventually you're putting a risk of thinning out this rubber outside material for the ball, and you can even end up putting a hole in it. So I have broken these before, and I don't recommend it. But I do recommend the balls themselves, the infectious disease balls. I think that's what they're called, something like that. I think I bought them on ThinkGeek, but I'm sure there are other places that sell them as well. And let's see. I also have some Kinetic Sand. So Kinetic Sand is mixed with some sort of polymer so that it's like always supposed to have like the right amount of moisture to like make shapes with it. But whether or not you use it for that purpose of like sort of packing things together and making shapes, I find that it is still just nice to let it melt and sort of fall apart in your hands. As I do this, it sort of falls apart, and it's really just very soft. And even while it's very soft, it's not like beach sand. It is different from that. It's different consistency from that. it's definitely an interesting thing to feel moving around in your hands. If you do not like having the sense of things like residues on your hand, then this is maybe not the right thing for you, because it will leave a residue. And it's not, I don't think it's the sand itself, but I think it's because of whatever they have to mix with it in order to make it so that it is good for sort of making shapes and stuff. But you will be able to smell it. I mean, at least until you wash your hands. It's like you can just sort of take your hand in and let it all sort of melt away and fall apart and roll off of your fingertips. And when you pack it together, you sort of squeeze all the air out of it and make a shape. But then when you just sort of if you just sort of push underneath and sort of change that shape, and you get it to start with that sort of falling apart process, it's like it all fills up with air and it becomes light and light and lighter and falls apart and falls away. So yeah, there you go. That's Kinetic Sand. It does not come in a Pyrex dish like that. I moved it into that for the convenience of the dish. I guess it was only supposed to be temporary, but I never found a different place to put it that was better. Let's see what else. Okay, here is a piece of Antron fleece. As with the other piece of faux fur that I showed earlier, this is something that we had bought for projects, to make a variety of puppets. It is really soft to the touch and is just sort of nice to feel. And this is just a scrap ending for something that we were making with it. For anyone that's not familiar, it's like what like Muppets are made of, essentially, and a variety of other kinds of puppets. Let's see what else. Sorry for the sound there. Okay, so this here is named Cheney, and this comes from a man named Jason, who is also called the Fidget Man, and he runs a website called Fidgetland. I had been looking for fidgets a few years ago and ended up finding the Fidgetland website, and I bought a few things from him, and this is one of them. As you can see, this is just their bicycle chain links, and that's it's straightforward for what this one is. You can make different shapes with it. It's easy to put in your pocket and sort of bring with you somewhere, and you can just sort of play with it. It makes some sounds as it sort of clicks against itself. And you really can play with it however feels good. I mean, that's one of the nice things about fidgets, is that you get to play with them how it makes you feel good. So yeah, there you go. That's Cheney. We'll put that aside as well. The next thing here is I'll have to explain what it is, but at this time I can't say that I'm looking to get into it. It is a let's see, what's the kind of material here? Need to, let's see, latex elastic, and it's a bod pod. I have an alter ego called the Blue Aspie Shape, and I will get into this here. It is a large elastic bodysuit, essentially. I mean, it doesn't have sleeves, but it is a big rectangle, and you can sort of stretch your hands into the corners and your feet down into the lower corners, and just sort of stretch them out, and then almost like the finger things here. It's like you can do that with your whole body inside of this suit, just sort of pushing from everywhere, really stretching yourself out. And that can definitely be a good physical exercise, and good for the brain. If you're someone who's not always got a great sense of your body around you, like with the satin pouch that I had shown earlier, and with the Antron and the other stuff, this material is very smooth. It's not satin, but it is smooth, and that makes it an appealing material to touch. And I think if it was something that was like more scratchy than this, I wouldn't put my whole body in it. But the fact is, it's just kind of appealing to the touch, and can be nice to just sort of immerse yourself in that material. So there you go. That's Blue Aspie Shape right there. Without the Aspie inside, because that's me. And then I also have this. This is called the Toro Flux, though there are a number of companies that sell these at this point, and they all call them some other kind of name. It is a sort of braided piece of metal. It's sort of in a spiral and goes through itself a few times, so that you have this almost donut-like shape. It can expand and create that. If you are just seeing it for the first time, or just playing with one for the first time, it might be challenging to figure out like how do you get it back to the flat part, and you really just sort of push it down, and there you go. But it doesn't, unless you have it totally flat, it doesn't really want to stay like that. But this is the more interesting thing you can do with it, is sort of roll it up and down your arms, roll it onto your friend's arm if somebody else is there. Or you can take this and sort of throw it up in the air and let it jump out. It's definitely an interesting sensation. Oh, sorry, I have a technical difficulty here. Okay. I accidentally hit the microphone, so it did something. But yeah, so you can sort of roll it along yourself, and it just, for me, it's like I can feel the traces on my skin of where it's gone across, and I can sort of track it all everywhere that it goes. It's definitely a good stim and good fidget, but if you are trying to do things, it's not necessarily the best one unless you're in a chair and only need one hand for what else you're doing. Essentially, you can just sort of roll it up and down one arm instead of using both. This can be good if you really just need something to do with that hand, so that it's not doing something like picking at skin or something else, or if you're just a sort of busybody kind of person that really needs something to fidget with. I mean, all sorts of people can have that need. I also have a fidget cube, which is something that I got from that Kickstarter from Antsy Lab. It's got the sort of seesaw type thing, like a light switch, and the sort of scroll wheel thing here has 5 different buttons on this side, 2 that are soft buttons, like where the whole thing pushes down all the way. And then the middle button is different from the 2 buttons on the outside, and that the 2 on the outside here are stiff, and the one in the middle is less. So we've got 3 different buttons there, different kinds. And then you have this thing, which is like a joystick. It's very similar to the one that is on the 3DS for the Nintendo. So you have this sort of thing here that can scroll around, and other things here. These 3 little cogs can all spin, and this metal ball spins and also clicks, which is definitely it's a good tool here at the Fidget Cube because of how many options you have for it. One drawback for it is that it is a cube and isn't necessarily the best thing to stick in your pocket unless you have particularly loose pockets. next I have a top. These are from, let's see, they're from Forever Spin. I have a few different ones from this company. One of them being made of stainless steel. One of them is made of aluminum. And I believe that this one right here is made of cast iron. You can spin it. I guess I didn't get a particularly good spin, but it's also not the best thing to be spinning it on. This is a rather rough surface here with this mat. If I can show you on something else, I will do that. Here's another one of them. Sorry, I've got other things here to sort through in order to find this. But I'm definitely trying to find something here. I'll have to get back to it in a moment. But okay, so here, for starters, this is another Tangle. And I already showed the other Tangle before, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. But the sort of different colors here and the fact that it's sort of bumpy and rubbery is why I wouldn't want to use this out in public necessarily. Whereas having one made of metal is much more appealing. I have a base for these, but that may be upstairs, and it's just a metal base that you could spin these in. This is the cast iron one here, and this one is the brushed stainless steel, and then I also have one that is made of aluminum. That's somewhere else in my my box of things here. They are they're made with the CNC machine by the company. I guess it's Forever Spin. Great company. They have sales often. Definitely worth looking into. They're really high quality and they're really pretty. The company makes them in a lot of different metals, so they have different densities and they're different colors. You can have ones that are made of gold or made of tungsten or rhodonite, or, a whole bunch of, or not rhodonite, but rhodium, different things. The difference in their weight does have a meaningful impact on them because it affects how long they can continue spinning. If you have any experience with physics, you might know that the something that is spinning around an axis has something called an inertial moment, and we use the letter I for that in when doing calculations involving torque. But that inertial moment, or like the rotational moment, is affected by the distribution of weight or mass across an object. So a sphere spinning where weight, the mass is filling the whole thing, is different from the inertial moment of a sphere where all of the mass is on the outside of it. And likewise, for these tops here, the way that this is shaped, you have, it's the same material, but for metals that are denser, the inertial moment in this disc part is going to be a lot higher, which is going to help it to spin longer because it'll be able to maintain the same spin and just sort of hold on to its inertia a lot better. I'll have to demonstrate these in another video along with the aluminum one. I'm going to show here another fidget. This comes from the same guy, Jason, from Fidgetland, where I got the Cheney. This is I guess they're made from key rings with little bike links, like a chain link, and then they have little silicone bands to hold the pieces together. What I'm doing right now is just sort of spinning it. And that's pretty much what you can do with it. You can sort of stick it on your finger. They're definitely nice. They come in a variety of combinations, and they don't all have the same, like, bands that are on them. You can get different bands, or you can get them without bands. There are really many different options. If you want to customize, you can even buy kits and make them yourselves. It's again just something that I had found that website on my own just while searching for things, and it ended up being a successful find for me. This one is not the first fidget that I got from that company, but the fidget that I have from them, that I had got the very first time that I ordered from them, I still carry with me almost every day. And I think that they're great. Okay, so the next thing here is a surgical brush. It's used for, like, in medical professionals for sort of scrubbing up when they're going to be headed into like an operating theater or something like that. And it's not a soft thing like a number of the other things that I've shown, but it is a fairly rough thing. But it is appealing for a similar thing to the feather in that you can sort of cover a wide area at the same time, and you don't have to necessarily be soft, or it doesn't have to be a light touch. It can be sort of rougher. You can also scrub. I've used these at times where I was having a hard time, or if I spent a long time working on my homework and then needed to do things with other people. What I found, and what I found with sort of figuring this out with one of my family members and close friends, is that these the use of the brush here, it's tactile in that you've got the physical sensations involved with it, but it also is something that is very auditory, right? You are using this on your skin, use it on your face, you sort of go up and down. Again, I tend to think of it like sowing the field, planting seeds, and how you're going to go across the whole surface. And because it's constantly making sound as you use it, that ends up being very centering, or it can be at times to be very centering. And if you're someone who can get very lost in your work or in other things, or sort of get bothered, or if you're upset about something, the surgical brush here is nice because it's a very distinctive sound and can be something that you just will hone in on. And when you're listening to that and feeling that on your skin, it can sort of distract you from the other thing and to sort of bring you back to real life, and bring you back to the current moment where you are in this very, very distinct sensory experience that you're having with these surgical brushes. Definitely is an interesting thing. I I would highly recommend these to anyone, not just people who are autistic, but really to anyone, because I think that a lot of people can have trouble with sort of getting out of their own head sometimes, and this is definitely a tool that can be good for that. If you're at all inclined to sort of try that sort of thing, I think you should go for it. Next, I have a different fidget spinner. This is the iSpin. It has different colors on the different sort of parts that are on it, and these actually can be unscrewed, so that if you wanted to have, say, well, you wouldn't want to do just two. You can have it arranged so that there are four things on it, or you can have it so that there's 2 or 3 or 6. And you're changing the weight of the whole thing when you do that. I think it probably spins the absolute smoothest with all of the things on it. And it's a higher quality ball bearing that's in this than the other one that we got from GoPuff. And this actually had come with an extra one, which is just in the container right here. I've got a tin that this came in. It's definitely a nice fidget spinner for sure. I'm sort of getting my finger caught in the way, but yeah. So there, that's the I-Spin fidget spinner. There's the bag for it, which I'm going to put over here. I have another one of the finger things here. This is the yellow one, which was the lightest one. Sort of a lot more flexible here than the blue one. See what else? It's going to be a good thing to share here. Okay. I'm gonna stop that and put this away. Okay. This here is a piece of silicone jewelry. It comes on a sort of necklace-y thing that sort of snaps closed. Now, it is shaped to be sort of like a gem or something, sort of crystal-like, so that it can pass more like jewelry. But it is intended for like teething. It's intended if you have and at times are inclined to sort of bite on something or chew on something. This can be something that you can do that with. It is designed to be a little discreet, not necessarily reveal what it's for. And I have this because there are definitely times where that's something that I am inclined to do, is sort of bite on something, chew on something, and it is something that is okay to chew on, rather than my shirt or my skin or something else, or a fidget. Also, because it is silicone, it is easily washable. So it's not gonna be a thing that needs to get dirty or anything like that. It can just get cleaned off if it's being used, and cleaned off before you use it too, if you're anticipating that. Because it's certainly a good idea to put something that you know is clean in your mouth rather than something that is dirty. Many things. Okay. So here I've actually found something that I was looking for earlier. This right here is also from Forever Spin, and it's a metal base that they make in order to spin their tops. So I'm gonna just put this in, and it's gonna make some interesting sounds too. I hope that you'll be able to hear. So it definitely is going a lot better on the base than it was when we were on the table directly, and that's pretty much what the base is for. The bases are made with the CNC machine as well, and so they're a precision made surface designed to help these things spin longer and better. Even since the time that I bought this one, they've actually further improved their bases and come up with new designs. Think I may have gotten this base in the Kickstarter campaign though. So that was the cast iron one. This is the stainless steel. Oh. When you spin it, you do need to spin it in the base in order for it to work. So here it's sort of dancing around the edge, and it'll make its way. Spinning this the cast iron one off the base is not really going well. So there's that. That's the Forever Spin stainless steel top and the Forever Spin base. I highly recommend taking a look at the products from that company. They're definitely a nice company, and they often have sales. And frequently, when they do sales, they'll also have like a secret item, something that's new, that anyone who gets an item during a certain promotional period will get an extra gift. And could definitely be worth it. Also, because they sell so many different kinds of them, anyone who has an interest in things like different metals and physics could find them to be interesting in that right, because they will all have different spinning properties because of the difference in their composition. Let's see. What else? I'm trying to identify something that's good and a little different from the other things that we've looked at so far. This is some Crazy Aaron's thinking putty. The kind that I have here is called Ion, and it is glow in the dark. I don't know if it will glow right now or if it has not charged. It probably would need to get some sunlight before it will actually do that. So I'm not going to bother going and turning the light off for the video, but thinking putty is definitely an interesting material in general, and can be fun to play with, which is why I have this. The different putties here, they do things like tear if you use them a certain way, or they can bounce, they can sort of pull, and if you snap it, it'll just tear, whereas if you pull it slowly, it will be like mozzarella cheese for me. Old mozzarella stick. And sort of pull out very, very quickly and become very, very thin. This one here, we've got other containers of this around the house. So this one has been sitting in here for a while and has unfortunately all settled down to the bottom, and is a little challenging to get out of this container. Maybe if I just sort of set it to its side, it'll work its way out on its own. Okay, what else? Um, okay. This right here is part of a logic puzzle. The logic puzzle was called Helix, and it had a ring that was attached like that to the star, and you could move the ring and sort of get from one place on it to another, and then when you finally get it off, then the star can actually spin freely. I can't say I know what happened to the other piece at the moment, but once I had solved it, I kind of didn't care as much about the other piece anymore, because it really I like the heft of this more than I care about the particular challenges involved with solving the puzzle. And for a while, this was something that I was carrying around with me frequently, just because it was appealing against another solid, hefty piece of metal. Really just right up my alley. I'm gonna wrap up soon here, so I'll just pick a few extra things. This right here is a small sand timer. This one in particular is, I think, 4 seconds. We can count. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it's actually a 3-second timer, and is in a little brass tube. I got this on Amazon, I believe, and I got it at a time when I felt like I needed some additional variety in what things I had available to me to fidget with, and I wanted something that was going to be continually requiring of that kind of attention. And so the timer here served that purpose. I could begin to use it, and in a couple seconds I needed to do something with my hand again, and again, and again. So there you go. That's just a little sand timer. But it can definitely be a nice thing for the sensory aspects of it if you are so inclined. Let's see, what else would be good to show here? I believe I just found the ring that goes with this as well, but I'm not going to try putting it on right now. There are so many things in here that are possible. Here is the third one of the Forever Spin tops. This is the aluminum one, which is the lightest one of them, which also means that it's the one that is not going to spin as long as the other ones. There's an interesting thing about it, which is that it is actually possible to spin it upside down too, because of how they are designed, but the it's difficult to do with the heavier ones because of the sort of offset that's being created when you put something with it is heavy above a part that is lighter. But that difference is less profound on the aluminum one because of how much less dense it is. But anyway, there you go. So that's all of that stuff from Forever Spin. And let's see, another good thing here. This is a puzzle ball thing. It has like a little foam thing on the inside that helps to sort of keep all the other parts on the outside. You have, I guess it's 11 faces or total. It's a total of 12 faces, but one of them is empty. And you can sort of push the pieces in to a place and move them into an adjacent rolled out of my hands. You can move them into an adjacent spot where the hole is, and you can just sort of scramble everything, and after everything has been scrambled, then you can bring it to someone who is good at solving these sorts of things and have them try and figure out how to get it back to normal. And it's definitely possible to get it back to normal. Normal for this being that you get all of these colors into circles of the same color. Let's see. Pick something for the last part of this. I really have many things, but not all of them were necessarily the best for this sort of video. But I do see this here. This is another fidget from Fidgetland. And unlike the other one that I had shown before, this one here is smaller and it has less stuff on it, so it weighs less. But the design intent with this one here is that it is small, it's lightweight, and it's quiet. That's why they had started putting those bands on those to improve how quiet they are. And then let's see, I picked this out here. Finally, this is just this is a Rubik's Cube. It's not an officially like a standard one, but it's actually a pretty good one because it spins particularly well. It spins better than the normal standard ones that I've had for longer. As with other cubes, it certainly makes plenty of noise to use it. But there are definitely times where that's a something of a victory in its own right to do. So that's just a Rubik's Cube. I can solve a Rubik's Cube, but don't particularly feel like mixing that up at the moment to deal with it. But yeah, there's that. I have plenty of other things here as well, but that's a good taste of a lot of the interesting things. When I post a video, I'll see about what I can share in the comments or in the description below the video, in case anyone is interested in finding any of these things themselves. But without any further ado, I wish you a good rest of the day, whatever time of day you are at right now. I hope that you enjoyed this video on different stims and fidgets that are helpful for me. And I hope that if you are someone that does look for those sorts of things, that this video could be a good resource for you. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to spending more time with you.